The morning sunlight filtered through the studio's large windows as Samuel L. Jackson strode onto the set of The View with an air of defiance mixed with showmanship. Stepping into the circle of chairs where Whoopi Goldberg and her co-hosts sat ready to begin. The audience greeted him with enthusiastic applause that rang out like an invitation and a challenge all at once. Jackson, larger than life, whether on screen or in person, offered a quick wave and a charismatic grin. But the atmosphere was already charged with tension, just hours before. Headlines had blasted out about Jackson's fiery comments on social media concerning cancel culture. And though the show had promised a candid conversation, something told everyone watching that this wouldn't be business as usual. Whoopi, anchor of this ship, extended her hand and kept her smile polite. But beneath it lay the steel of someone who's navigated broadcast conflicts before. As introductions wrapped, Whoopi pivoted with practiced warmth, asking Jackson about his new project, but before he could speak his first word, she raised her index finger and said, "Sam, before we dive in, there's something we need to address." And in that moment, the camera zoomed in on Jackson's face: expectation, mild defiance, curiosity. Asterisk, he nodded slowly. "Go ahead," he said, voice steady. Whoopi inhaled and delivered what she knew would rattle him. "Your social posts last." Night-rocked Populu called the culture cowardly and said platforms were censoring honest voices. Some say those are needed checks. Where do you draw the line between free speech and accountability? Jackson's jaw tightened, but good-naturedly, he leaned forward. "I'll tell you where. When people are afraid of truths that aren't convenient," he said. "When every thought and opinion becomes a test, you'll fail unless you please the mob." His posture softened only briefly, eyes locking with Whoopi's. The audience tensed. Social media eyes were already raining down digital logs. Whoopi responded, "But Sam, some find your posts harsh. Blunt can be truthful, but can be harmful. Do you care?" He took a measured breath. "I care about honesty more," he replied. The pause that followed left the studio buzzing. Asterisk, that was the prelude. What followed became something entirely different. Whoopi leaned in, voice firm. "Let's get real. Sam, you are one of Hollywood's most powerful black voices. Your words carry weight. That doesn't mean someone shouldn't be able to critique you. But yesterday, you called women's voices frivolous and dismissed entire movements. We have co-hosts here, Soraya, Sunny, Sarah, who've spent years advocating. Do you regret that?" Jackson's grin vanished, replaced by a tempered glare. "Regret? No, but I'll tell you what I regret. That we're so afraid of discomfort we prefer echo chambers to truth." Studio gasped. Co-hosts shifted in chairs. Whoopi placed her hand on her lap. "So you're saying friction is better than reflection?" she pressed. Jackson paused, then said, "Reflection often comes after friction, and if we coddle too soon, we never grow." The audience murmured, polarized, some nodding, others disapproving. Asterisk, Whoopi's eyes flashed. "Friction can lead to fire, Sam. And fire can burn more than it lights." It was a quiet rebuke, but heavy. Jackson looked to the cameras, raised his voice. "Better to burn with honesty than freeze with silence." That line crackled like a fuse lit. The audience leaned in. Soraya attempted an interjection, something about nuance and listening, but Jackson cut in. "Nuance is good, but not if it means tiptoeing around truth." Whoopi rose a hair in her voice and said, "Truth is not an excuse to castigate." Wholesale, referencing Jackson's seemingly absolute proclamations, he bristled. "It isn't wholesale. Whoopi, it's necessary. Can't keep pretending complexity is just another way to avoid conflict." The shift was palpable. It was no longer an interview, but a fragile duel of ideas. Asterisk, a silence fell before Whoopi slid a card across the table. "I'll ask you straight, Sam. If someone disagrees with you, you don't back down. But can you disagree with grace?" Jackson's hand hovered. "Anyone who reminds me how to speak with grace better understands their malleability in face of power." The words were a rifle shot. Whoopi inhaled carefully. "So you think disagreeing with you is cowardice or a sign they're compromised?" Jackson's laughter, dry but unmistakably sharp, echoed in the studio. I think we're too quick to pat each other's heads rather than challenge ourselves. His critique sounded bold, principled to some, curt to others. Whoopi angled forward, her tone lowering. Sam, you've been critical of people hiding behind identities, protecting themselves with their platform. Are you surprised I'm pushing back? Jackson looked at Whoopi with a complex expression: respect, challenge, maybe even love. No, I expect it from you, Whoopi. That's why I'm here. She nodded, face inscrutable. A long pause settled. The audience seemed to hold their breath. Jackson pressed on softly. We're in a moment where every platform is afraid to say what needs saying. You as a woman in power, me as a man of words, most of us suit ourselves. His tone softened briefly, but I don't suit. The line hung, heavy with defiance and vulnerability. And then it happened. With no prior signal, Whoopi rose from her seat. Pointed but not accusing, Leanne said, Sam, respect your fire. But fire without footing consumes the builder. You risk turning strength into spectacle. I used to say we needed voices like yours, but now I'm asking, does your truth make room for theirs? The bullet in her question was fired with precision. Jackson closed his eyes. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter, more honest. If your truth is hushed to protect theirs, you have already lost. The room exhaled. Something fundamental had just been said. All at once, Jackson stood to Wan, pointed back. Silence. Is a compromise you won't have me make, he said. Neither do I come here to shred yours. He looked at Whoopi. But if I'm going to speak truth, real truth, I won't turn around to comfort its casualties. The tension lingered like a cord held too long. Whoopi closed her eyes, nodded once slowly. Then let's speak truth, not hurt, she whispered. Jackson looked away, nodded. And then, without another word, the stage manager cut to commercial. But it was too late. The silence that followed was deafening. When the show returned, Jackson was gone. The chair that had held him sat empty, like evidence of the storm that had just rolled through. Whoopi remained seated, shaken, her voice taut when she said, "We'll be back in 2." She offered no explanation, just the tight-faced strength of leadership. The audience clapped, some with relief, others nervously, different hands, different hopes. But the weight had shifted. In the days that followed, the clip went full viral. Jackson times Goldberg Showdown dominated trending lists. Hashtags, #Jackson, Goldberg Showdown, #TruthFees, Grace raced across platforms. Commentators praised the passionate exchange or condemned the breakdown. Some called Jackson reckless, others courageous. Whoopi received accolades for holding the line, even against a beloved icon. In the turbulence afterward, neither figure offered public apologies. Jackson's team released a statement thanking The View and reaffirming his commitment to honesty. While encouraging deeper dialogues, Whoopi responded on air the next day saying, "Sometimes we collide because it matters. We must keep speaking even when we burn." The network issued a measured note about editorial decisions, but said nothing more. Meanwhile, social media exploded with think pieces, dissecting tone, expression, balance of power between host and Hollywood star. The polarized reactions mirrored the debate itself. Was Jackson speaking his truth, or simply lashing out? Did Whoopi's rebuke show weakness or clarity? The answers were as divided as the week's headlines, yet as the dust settled. One thing remained, a pivotal moment that redefined late-morning television. The clash between two powerful voices had laid bare the delicate difference between speaking honestly and speaking destructively. Jackson's departure, abrupt and unexplained, left a vacuum but also a challenge. Could The View rebuild stronger through controversy rather than be defined by it? And what would historians say? That a Hollywood legend stormed off in defense of candor? Or that the show did what it must, protecting its own moral compass? In the end, viewers were left not with closure but a question. When the truth burns, do we frame it, or are we consumed?